An Amnesty International report on the 6-month civil war in Libya highlights abuse on both sides of the conflict. The international human rights NGO says the National Transitional Council must act quickly to establish a proper judicial system.
Human rights group Amnesty International has compiled a 112-page report detailing war crimes by both sides of the Libyan war.
This report covers roughly the last 6 months, basically the battle for Libya. And we looked at abuses from the side of the Gaddafi forces, many war crimes, possibly crimes against humanity, but also there have been abuses on the part of the fighters who opposed Gaddafi.
The report says the attacks by Gaddafi forces on civilian protesters constituted a crime against humanity, while arbitrary detentions, torture of prisoners and widespread abductions were war crimes. The report also says anti-Gaddafi forces are guilty of human rights abuses, having abducted, arbitrarily detained, tortured and killed Gaddafi loyalists and foreign nationals wrongly suspected of being mercenaries.
It's very difficult to say who are the people being detained. Clearly some of them must have been fighters on the side of Gaddafi, but many others seem to be migrant workers who are being automatically assumed to be mercenaries, especially if they come from countries in sub-Saharan Africa. There's also, black Libyans who tend to be treated as traitors unless proven otherwise, and there may be some private settling of scores going on.
At least 1,000 people are believed to be in detention in the Tripoli area alone, and Amnesty says Libya's ruling interim council must establish the country's justice system rather than leave it in the hands of localized militia.
At the moment, the only people in control of the detention centers are in fact the fighters of the various brigades. The Transitional National Council hasn't yet established control over the detention centers, which is what we hope would be able to do as soon as possible.
With NTC forces having taken much of Libya, the country's new leadership is under pressure to get the security situation under control and prevent further abuses from taking place.
Taliban's suicide fighters launch a multi-pronged attack in Kabul, targeting embassies and police facilities. Casualties are reported among civilians, police and insurgents.
Under attack in Afghanistan. Taliban suicide fighters launch a broad attack in the Afghan capital of Kabul Tuesday, including an assault on police headquarters. At least 2 civilians and 2 policemen were killed and 22 people were wounded in a series of attacks. Police officials describe what happened.
The suicide bomber was shot by our security guard and his explosive material exploded. Because of that explosion, one of our soldiers died and 2 were wounded, and also one of our tanks was damaged.
Insurgents took over a multi-story building under construction in the heavily fortified diplomatic district, firing rockets and automatic rifles at several embassy and NATO compounds. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton spoke in Washington.
It appears that a number of Afghan civilians have been hurt, and we, of course, will do all we can to assist them. There are no reports of casualties among embassy personnel at this time. We are following this very closely, also the unfolding situation in the area, including at NATO ISAF headquarters, which for those of you who have been in Kabul, is across the street from our embassy compound. We will take all necessary steps not only to ensure the safety of our people, but to secure the area and to ensure that those who perpetrated this attack are dealt with.
NATO said the attacks were an attempt to derail plans to hand over security to Afghan forces. U.S. President Barack Obama has announced a plan to gradually draw down U.S. forces in Afghanistan and hand over all security responsibilities to Afghan forces by the end of 2014. Violence in Afghanistan is at its worst since U.S.-backed Afghan forces toppled the Taliban government in late 2001, with high levels of foreign troop deaths and record civilian casualties.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Wednesday, September 14th, 2011, and I am Darko. This is part 2 of this news bulletin, everyone. My website is ggnonline.com. That's www.ggnonline.com. Also, ddarko2012 is my YouTube channel. That's ddarko2012. You can subscribe via email here, and there's a poll for a couple more days. Also, a news archive over there. Sorry about that first video with the no audio. Sometimes that happens. I don't have the most professional equipment over here, so sometimes the mic that I'm using to talk with is actually the mic that I'm using to record the audio for the video. So, you know, and it's all with duct tape, and my speakers have duct tape because they're all falling apart. But the mission, again, is the information. So instead of me just going over and doing it all over again just for that one part, I thought I'd just post the link. So check out that link, and you can get access to that video, which is a pretty good video. I am kind of upset that the audio wasn't in there because it was very good. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving here. And the first up, and I almost wonder if these, if the Taliban actually do actually get paid to do what the West wants, because it's like, okay, now we're going to attack because they're going to hand over. You know, why would the Taliban do that? You know what I mean? Why didn't they just let them leave, let NATO and the U.S. leave, and then, you know what I mean? And once they're all gone, do what you got to do to take out this puppet regime in Afghanistan, just like in Pakistan. Why did they, I mean, why would they attack because the U.S. is going to leave? It's like saying that they want them to stay, and that's the whole point, is to make a lot of money and contracts and that. So I don't know. Maybe they're just mad. Maybe they're just mad that the U.S. is getting in on their little opium drug trade, and that's it. Maybe they don't care about the people. I don't know. I'm not an Afghan. I haven't lived over there, but I'm not gonna just go on a limb and or just not say go on a limb. But I'm not gonna just speculate and say, oh, they're evil people, and the U.S. is you know, peaceful humanitarians. So Gaddafi nowhere to be found. Son in Niger, Muammar Gaddafi's son. Saadi is under guard. Sorry, not underground, but under guard in the Niger capital after fleeing Libya at the weekend. It says, but NATO has knowledge it has no idea where his fugitive father is holed up. Colonel Gaddafi in Libya and readying forces. Muammar Gaddafi is still in Libya and in good spirits with a powerful army behind him, the ousted leader's spokesman has claimed. He's in good health and high morale. Of course, he is in Libya, so you got all kinds of conflicting reports here. Quote, the fight is far away from the end. As the world can imagine, we are still very powerful. Our army is still powerful, and we have huge areas of Libya under control, he said. We're gathering our forces. So you can go in there and check out that article as well. Libya, this city held by pro-Gaddafi forces, residents were told to leave, it says here, 2 days before, and they're going to launch a full-scale assault, according to media reports. So. And then we have Libya. NTC must take control to prevent spiral of abuses, and National Transitional Council must get a grip on armed anti-Gaddafi groups to stop reprisal attacks and arbitrary arrests, Amnesty International warned as it released a major report into human rights violations during the Libya conflict. So it goes in there and says that Gaddafi forces committed war crimes and abuses which may amount to crimes against humanity, including indiscriminate attacks, which the U.S. is known for doing, against its own people. You know, ATF raiding compounds of people who are religious and want to be left alone, or people who just don't want to voluntarily pay taxes, and they get shot like Bill Cooper did on his doorstep, as he predicted a year prior to it. Mass killing of prisoners, well, you know, whatchamacallit, the other side is the anti-Gaddafi, the rebel side, has been doing the same thing. Also, the U.S., you know, I hate to say it, but they do torture prisoners as well, very, very bad. And it says here, enforced disappearances and arbitrary arrests. Well, the U.S. is also known for these renditions, as they call them, and just people disappearing to these CIA black sites. So they're just as guilty. So female war reporters were given the softer side of the war. So female war reporters have glorious history. And so why are they still judged by their, and I think that's a woman that had that nice Nazi helmet on. Basically, this is just like that propaganda piece that you saw. Ooh, it was a female anti-Gaddafi woman that was calling in the coordinates that was, bombing Benghazi and Tripoli. And now you have this article again about the females. So again, it's all about ISIS. That's what it's all about, guys. I keep saying that because that's what it's all about. It's about an imbalance in the male and female energy. And here we have foreign media overstate Syria death toll. So Syrian opposition accuses the foreign media of blowing the events unfolding in the country out of proportion, saying the real number of those killed during the months of the unrest is much less than they had basically claimed. Moving on here, get this out of here. U.S. Ambassador to Syria in charge of recruiting Arab Muslim death squads. And remember, I covered this, so you can go there and check that out. It's the key State Department official who is responsible, Robert S. Ford. So remember, I covered it in a press article. They had like 4 guys rounded up that were from Saudi Arabia. Al-Qaida chief says 9/11 paved way for Arab Spring rising. Well, that makes sense because it was a false flag attack, just like the Arab Spring. It says here, Jordanians burn U.S.-Israeli flags in the capital. Then we move on here. Israel warns of harsh consequences of Palestinian UN bid. So it warned on Wednesday to be harsh consequences, and talking about seeking UN membership as a state. Moving on, U.S. scrambles to avert Palestinian vote at UN. So they're United States is facing increasing pressure. The Palestinian quest for statehood gained support from Turkey and other countries. The Obama administration sought an 11th hour compromise that would avoid a confrontation at the United Nations next week. Ahmadinejad Zionists started both world wars. That's right, he tells Washington Post, Zionist regime is behind all conflicts. Palestinian UN bid be at the beginning of liberation of entire Palestinian land. Then we have, is New Turkey rising after Arab unrest? So as Turkey continues to assert its power in the Arab world, it is being met by growing concern in Israel and its Western allies. Turkey joins NATO's missile defense shield. That was, 7 hours ago. But also, look at this, U.S.-Romania Inc. accord on missile system as well. So missile shields going up. Things are getting ready to pop off. Don't know about 2012. It's going to be the end of the world, but it does seem like there's going to be some Israel-Iran type scenario possibly in civil unrest coming to fruition here next year, guys. Brutality by Afghan local police is reported. So local police forces trained and financed by the United States have killed and raped civilians, stolen land, and carried out other abuses against Afghan villagers. They are charged with protecting, according to a report released on Monday by Human Rights Watch. So just typical stuff. Hillary Clinton, more smart power needed in terrorism fight. So she said on Friday, the creation of a new global counterterrorism forum, which will use smart power, which is what? Soft power, right? Soft power. Instead of just going in and killing and shooting, and they'd like to use soft power, which seems like, oh, it's humanitarian. We're going to drop uranium-tipped bombs on civilians. It's very humanitarian. Says here, and uprisings, that's soft power. Post September 11th, NSA enemies include us. So says today the enemy morphed from a handful of terrorists to the American population at large. I said this, guys. I said this. I've been saying this for the past 2 years since I started, that you are the new terrorists, regular civilians in the U.S., not brown terrorists from the Middle East. Then we have Liverpool to investigate 9/11 tweet from Nathan Esselton. I guess he's a football or soccer player, depending on which side of the pond you're from. Liverpool are investigating striker Nathan Escalon for comments on Twitter that suggested the 11 September attacks were not the work of terrorists. So Scotland Yard is going to be looking for him. It says here, no charges against 3 detained at Detroit Airport. And they actually had F-16s coming. And look at this, some real shock and awe, racially profiled and cuffed in Detroit. Check this out. I don't have enough time, but just very horrible story for this woman. Gerard Depardieu says plane toilet incident was beautiful. He said, I say, Madame, I have to pee. I'm not sick. sick. I'm not a terrorist. I just want to pee. And he says that I'm not a monster. I'm just a man who has to pee. Maybe the flight attendant was having a nervous breakdown. I don't understand why she blocked the door. I say, don't worry, I will clean it. So I guess he peed in a bottle. White House official compares illegal immigration to jaywalking. Then U.S. Homeland Security now tracking medical records of Canadians who can't get over the border if they have mental illness. Anti-terror drill held in East China. Then we have Russia announces joint military exercises with North Korea. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.